So, Kev, we've got to do something here. We have to talk about Sam and Johnny. What is going on with Sam and Johnny? It's madness. Did this happen last week or was it the week before? It all moves pretty fast, this world. But we basically, I know we don't talk about Johnny. It's a bit like that Disney film, isn't it? We don't talk about Hugo. Which Disney film was that? Have you kept up with Disney films recently? Maybe that's not, that's not recent either.
I know the one you mean, but I can't remember the name. I didn't know you were on first name terms
We
with
don't
Johnny.
talk about Hugo. No.
Singing.
Mix in with Johnny. Anyway, Sam and Johnny did a thing, and I thought, well, it was mad on a number of levels. We could talk about the actual video because no one seems to be talking about the actual video. But I thought that was a bit bonkers, but we'll come on to that. But OpenAI basically acquired IO. Now, they already own some of it. They owned, I think, 20-odd% of it already. And they've acquired the rest of it for a reported $6.5 billion. What they really did was there's no cash involved. What they really did was they gave Johnny Ive some shares in OpenAI. OpenAI is valued at $300 billion. Therefore, they extrapolated, it must be worth $6.5 billion. So that's basically what happened. But did they really just do that because they wanted Johnny Ive on the team? Or have they really got some magic prototype in the works that they wanted to make sure they owned all of? What's really happened there? You got any thoughts?
Oh, well, my first thought was actually, just you referring to him as Johnny, like he's your best mate.
Whenever someone mentions Johnny Ive, I think there was a meme or a video or something that was going around years ago about him being locked in this white room and Steve Jobs would never let him out. And then we didn't hear from him for years and just assumed he was still locked in that white room.
Yeah, I think there's some people, isn't there, that you always have to refer to by their full name, like their first name and their surname. And Johnny Ive is one of those people. It just made me laugh when you called him Johnny. I don't think anyone's ever called him Johnny before.
Is he a Sir Johnny? Did that happen to him? Is he Sir or Lord?
He is, isn't he? Yeah. So anyway, $6.5 billion. That's $6.5 billion for a design company. I don't know if they have any products that have been released yet, or.
So I think they've talked about IP and prototypes and things in the work. I did a little bit of reading, and they have a combination of 55 hardware engineers and hardware designers. And they also use Sir Johnny Ive's design company called Love Something. It's called something like that, isn't it? I Love You, or anyway, he's got a little design company that does kind of that. And they use that. Now, OpenAI haven't bought that, but they've sort of bought access to it whenever they decide to use it.
Is that the same one that Apple use, or because they were going to basically outsource a load of design stuff to Johnny Ive, weren't they?
Maybe. I got the impression that these 55 people are all ex-Apple as well. So they basically grabbed all the people who wanted to do the same thing. But I don't know if you saw any of the interview. Was it in the actual video, or was it an interview later on where he basically said there was a whole bunch of unforeseen consequences of that last revolution started. And I want to fix them by getting in at the beginning of this new revolution, which can't possibly have any unforeseen consequences. It was all a bit dystopian.
How much of it is heartfelt? How much of it is marketing spin? I don't know. But the narrative they're trying to spin is that I was responsible for getting everybody addicted to screens, and now we're going to change that. And me and Sam are going to find a way to wean people away from their screens so that they can be addicted to never having to think about anything ever again, because we're going to outsource it to
unforeseen consequences.
A box you wear around your neck or put on the table. It's all very Black Mirror, isn't it? I don't know the way all this tech is being positioned.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the design community went a bit nuts over this. So all of a sudden everyone who's a designer got very excited because the design company got valued at $6.5 billion, which it seems a bit nuts. But surely there's something going on here, isn't it? Either they've got some magical prototype that really is going to change the world, and Sam Altman wanted more than 22% of it, or he really, really likes Johnny Ive and it was just what he wanted for his pay packet. Because it's just a consultancy, right? It's consultancy and IP is what he's bought. So it's very strange.
Yeah, and the brand Johnny, I guess. But I mean, and the video, right? That was special.
It was really special. Now, I haven't seen anyone comment on this at all, but there were several things that really made it special. Part of me thinks it was AI, Like, was it made by Sora or something else? Because there was something kind of otherworldly about it. In the credits, they credited the Coppola family, I think it was. So they clearly tried to get some directors involved, but they were like talking to each other while looking at the camera and referring to each other in the third person. It was so weird.
Well, it was the whole kind of setup with the coffee shop and walking down the street, and it's like we're two mates and we've decided to hook up and do this new thing. We're not going to tell you anything about the new thing, but it's like they're kind of trying to spin this narrative of these two guys coming together, almost like the next dynamic duo, the Steve Jobs and the Johnny Ive of the future.
Yeah.
It was a bit gross, wasn't it?
A bit gross, and it didn't feel real. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was AI generated. There was definitely something a bit kind of, uncanny about it. It was the uncanny valley going. I was like, I don't feel this doesn't look right.
Yeah, but okay, so we've mocked it, but so roll forward, I don't know what it is, 12 months, 18 months, and they released this new gadget. Are you buying one?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it depends. It depends what it costs, right? Yeah, absolutely. I think so they're pitching it as the third device that you need. So they're not. I think they said it's not going to replace your Mac or your phone, but it's going to work with it. It's going to work alongside it. It's going to be the extra must-have device, which I guess they said MacBook Pro and iPhone, so you already know what audience.
Oh yeah, well Johnny doesn't want his Apple shares to diminish too much, does he?
But there's no real clues as to what it's going to be. I saw various conspiracy theories about it all being in the video. Was it an AI coffee cup, or was there a pin badge, and there's rumors of necklaces and pendants and stuff, but I just can't see.
Yeah, and I read
doing it.
I read it was something that you could wear around your neck, but that you could also put on your desk. So you sit down, you put it down, and it's kind of there, and it's got a microphone in it, it's got a camera in it. I don't know why I need one. So I'm fascinated.
If they give you some kind of choker or dog collar, or are you going to wear it? That's a bold step.
Yeah. What is it in the Black Mirror episode? They have this thing, don't they? That's kind of is it around their ear, and it kind of just records everything all the time. And I don't know. That doesn't seem very far fetched at all anymore. I remember watching that episode and thinking, God, that's awful. It's kind of this dystopian future. Then I look at how I'm starting to use AI in my day to day, and I'm like, oh damn, I didn't record that. Now I don't know what I said, and I can't rework those words into 10 other derivative pieces of work. And so you're feeling, I guess, you had that anxiety, people still have it, I suppose, when they don't have their phone on them, and it's like, oh, I can't do anything. I can't check the results, or I can't book my train, or I can't jump on my calendar. I can't, Are we getting to that level with AI now? The power maybe I'm a power user, I don't know, but I find it quite uneasy when I can't just get to a chat interface, or I can't access a bunch of previous AI note taking or whatever.
Yeah, you can certainly see the benefit of the ways on if you're not having to think about it, but you can always sort of play it back to yourself, or you say repurpose it. We find it internally. Someone has forgot to turn on the transcript for a meeting, and you get halfway through and you realize actually you just had a 10-minute conversation about something really cool. Oh, I didn't record it. I can't remember what I said, or it's not even that. It's that I can't now use the AI to help me repurpose that and use all those tokens to build the next thing. So we found that internally, just sort of in the business world, but you can see, I think, why there is benefit, I think, but it feels like a leap to think that everyone's going to want to do it. Particularly if it's such a statement piece, like a pendant or a dog collar, or
yeah. But like in the early days, people didn't think that you'd just go everywhere with your phone and you'd have your phone on you at all times. It's one of these things. It's this kind of nudge factor, isn't it? It builds up slowly over time until it gets to a point, and you look back, maybe like Johnny Ive's doing now, and you go, "How did we get here? How did it get this far along the track?" And I always, with this AI stuff, and we've mentioned it on here before, I wonder about the data privacy aspects of it. It's all very well and good when you think you've got people in charge who are not trying to profit off of that data. But if you're being recorded 24/7, I suppose we kind of live in a surveillance society already. When you walk down the street, you're getting recorded by CCTV, but this feels slightly different, doesn't it? Like all your thoughts and all your interactions, and even if you're placing this thing on the desk or around your neck and it's got a camera on it, the amount of data that it's going to generate if it's always on device potentially is quite worrying.
But I think these things are coming anyway, right? I mean, you must have seen the furore around the Google I/O again a couple of weeks ago. And one of the big things was something that actually had already seeded was kind of the Google XR stuff that they put the demo video out a few years ago, didn't they? About the walking along the street with the glasses and real-time translation, real-time maps, real-time overlay of data. But they're saying it's pretty close, and they obviously gave a live demo of sorts in Google I/O, but you can kind of see that form factor working. It makes sense. They look like real glasses. It's not like the Google Glass of old, or even the Meta stuff at the moment. But this looks like real glasses that would just blend in, and you would just never know. And it's the sort of thing that you would wear all the time. There's only one way that's going, right?
It's inevitable. It's inevitable. I think Cyberpunk 2077 is my new playbook for how it's going to work out. Everything is just a stepping stone to digital implants and augmentation. It's the glasses come before the contact lenses, which come before the direct brain implant. But it's all about. I mean, I jest, but it is all about overlaying data and context in a non-invasive way, so it's always there when you need it. You don't have to pull your phone out your pocket. You don't have to stop and log onto your computer. It's just with you when you need it in the moment all the time. So I was having this discussion with my wife a couple of days ago. Reflecting on actually the whole kind of Johnny Ive position and the potential damage that phones and technology have done over the last decade, especially with respect to kids and social media and all this stuff. And you can look at it in a negative light, and you can kind of romanticize that it was better before we had phones, right? The kids used to play out the back, and parents didn't know what time they're going to be back, but they're always back in time to watch Neighbours, And now parents can monitor their kids all the time; they know where they are, but at the same time, they're also going on social media and having these conversations and connecting with people perhaps they shouldn't be. So yeah, there are dangers. There are things that we reminisce about as potentially better in the past, but you can book a taxi and see where it is on a map. You don't have to wait around forever. And I can go anywhere in the world and find out where I need to be because I have a map of the entire world in my pocket and a voice that tells me which direction to turn. I mean, it's pretty cool. It is pretty cool as well.
It's pretty cool. So if this is inevitable, right? Obviously it's coming. Whatever OpenAI land on us is going to be the coolest gadget in the world, and everyone's going to buy it, whether it's any good or not. And we're going to be at the front of the queue. It's basically what we're saying.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, the thing is, there's no doubt that the Steve Jobs and Johnny Ive combination did produce the magic. The jury is out right now as to whether that same magic can happen with these two, because things tend to work better under constraints, don't they? The best designs tend to come out of the constraints imposed upon them. When the iPhone was first being developed, the engineers pushed back and said it was impossible and that kind of thing. There was like a trade-off between what Steve Jobs' vision was, what Johnny Ive wanted to bring or could bring, and where the materials and the robotics were at the time. And what the engineers and the developers could, and the hardware engineers could make. Is there going to be the same healthy tension in this new dynamic duo? Who knows? I guess we'll find out. It's all part of this OpenAI. Is it pivoting, or was it always the plan? I don't know. But developing into this product company. They have to be a product company because it's pretty much widely believed now that the open source model in terms of LLMs and AI development is the way to go. And that's certainly what you hear China talking about a lot. And the value of having a private company that makes a private LLM is it really going to be that much more of an advantage? I think DeepSeek and a lot of the other startups coming out of China are starting to prove that perhaps it's not, that they're achieving huge amounts out in the open with more constraints. And DeepSeek is almost on a par with OpenAI's models, and it was developed for a fraction of the cost. That company is profitable, and OpenAI is not. So model makers, that looks like the future is open source, and it's not profitable. It's not a moat. So you have to be doing more. You have to, what's going to bring in the money when the cost of inference tends to zero over time. You've got to be building a distribution channel, and you've got to be building products that delight users and are sticky and that those users want to pay for. Now, in that sense, the acquisition of IO makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, the open source piece is really interesting, isn't it? Fundamentally, it probably comes down to trust, doesn't it? When you're landing on some of these, obviously these LLMs are such foundational pieces of technology that you don't want it entrusted to an organization that can just change. Even let's assume all the will in the world, OpenAI are the perfect company, and they've only got good intentions, and Sam Altman's some kind of saint, and everything's going to be lovely. They could get bought tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then all bets are off and everything changes. And we've seen that over the years with companies, but obviously quite recently with like X and Twitter and the stuff that Elon's been doing. They're around with first names again. Elon's my mate. The stuff that's been going on.
I won't broadcast that.
So that's going to be cut now. I'm going to be a meme. And the stuff that's been going on there, and even within an organisation, when they do just change their mind. Again, if you look at the stuff that's been going on with the wild swing from the left to the right and back again, that's probably about to happen with Elon Musk and so you just don't know what these private companies are going to be doing. And at least if it's out in the open and in the open source world, is there out in the open, and you can see whether it's trustworthy or not. So I think there's probably something to be said for that.
I suppose the other thing, I don't know if you've noticed, but it feels like the news has died down a bit recently. The pace is sort of slowing a bit.
When you say recently, do you mean in the last?
I mean in the last
10 days,
the last month. Yeah, in the last month. But I think it's still noticeable. Unless next week there's going to be some earth-shattering new release, which based on the recent pace isn't too out there. But it feels like everything's starting to be finessed a bit more now. Like the path is becoming a little bit more clear, and the stuff that has been developed now needs to be baked and tuned, and it needs to mature. And I've noticed this specifically in the whole AI coding space, right? So when people realized that you could use LLMs to write code, that was really, really exciting. And then you got a lot of pushback. And then as the LLMs got cleverer, the code they could produce got better. And for a small group of people, that was really, really exciting. And then they brought out IDEs, so development environments for software engineers, to plug straight into those LLMs, or to bring the LLM into the development environment. And they functioned as kind of a fancy autocomplete that could do a lot more, a lot quicker. And then you saw the shift to kind of agentic workflows, where you've almost got a co-developer, an AI co-developer with you, helping you to think about the code and write the code and document the code. And that will happen really, really fast. That whole transition happened really, really fast. But I think what you're seeing now is these ideas have become quite concrete and they're being finessed. And I'm noticing a different kind of pushback now. So 6 months ago, 9 months ago, something like that, you had the developers who hated it and the developers who loved it. And there was this kind of real tension between those two groups. And I think it's got to a point now where there's this kind of capitulation in the development community, and it's like, okay, well, these tools are here, everyone's going to end up using them, so I might as well just get on the bandwagon and on the train. But so now you've got a lot more developers all of a sudden using the tools. They're not pushing back anymore, they're trying to use them. And two things are happening. You've got the AI companies, which have now really zeroed in on this audience, and they're listening to the feedback, and they're going, okay, well, we need to take on board some of the more laborious things. So we're going to take this agent idea and we're going to expand it. And so Cursor have yesterday they released a new version of their development environment. So new version, it's actually made it to version 1, and they've got they've got agentic coding, but they've also got bug bots. So kind of these background agents that work to find a document and maybe even fix bugs in your code. They've got memory coming in now, so they're starting to learn more about your code base and remember it over time. And that was a real bugbear, because up until very recently, it would just forget any kind of nuance. And it's like every time you fire it up, you're starting from scratch. And then you've got some of these other IDEs that are taking a multi-agent approach. So you can go into them and you've got your AI agent that's an architect and your AI agent that's a quality engineer. And so you're starting to see the development of this whole ecosystem now, and it's focusing more on breadth, I think, rather than depth. But you've also got this huge pool of developers that are now using these tools, and they're starting to notice a lot more where they fall down, and they're starting to feel the disappointment, I suppose, a bit more keenly. So this is what I was promised. This is what everyone was telling me. This is where I actually am in my day-to-day. And yes, it can write stuff really fast, but I have to spend ages looking at it and correcting it, and then it forgets everything. And now I'm just somebody who spends all my time trying to repoint this junior engineer and get them AI engineer and get them behaving how I want them to behave. So I think we're in this weird place, and if you know that kind of Gartner hype cycle where you've got the peak of inflated expectations and then the trough of disillusionment, and then as you're going up there and then down there, and then over the next slower period of time it kind of gets back up and it becomes mainstream and normal and adopted, and everyone's forgotten that there were ever the inflated expectations or ever the disillusionment. I wonder if we're at that peak of inflated expectations now, because is finally becoming so ubiquitous. Most people are now I think most people maybe are using LLMs in their day-to-day, and the development community is on board fully, and they've been promised all this stuff, and it's not quite where they want it to be. It's not the same kind of pushback though. It's not like, oh, this stuff's rubbish, or this stuff's taking my job, or I never want to use it. It's like, oh, this is kind of okay, but it's not what I want it to be, and these are all the problems. And I think you're going to see this in business too. I think, there's this future that's coming that is very, very much agentic. And I do believe software as we know it is going to change shape, and it's going to be something different, and it's going to, that whole kind of middle layer is going to be very, very agentic, and we're going to design systems differently and think about systems differently. But everyone wants you to believe that is ready right now and it's perfect right now. And I think we're kind of 12 to 18 months away from that still. Before there's 18 months more of model development until they get to a point where a lot of the frustrations and the disillusionment is coming worked through, and they're delivering more on the expectations that we have today. I think we're working around a lot of those mismatched expectations at the moment. These are kind of trends that you've seen before with mobile, you've seen it with IoT, and the way that whole kind of ecosystem developed. I wonder if we're kind of in the same place now.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I wonder as well if there's two components to it, isn't there? There's the technology itself and where the technology is in its maturity cycle, but there's also the people's ability to utilize it, and particularly when there's such a shift in the way that we're all supposed to work and operate. There's an education and a re-education about how we're supposed to live and work in this world, right? So it's a bit like if I cast my mind back many years, Google arrives with a search engine that isn't, Ask Jeeves. It's this incredible thing that just worked. It was brilliant. It's a fantastic new search technology, and over a period of months and years, those of us that used it every single day figured out how it worked, how to ask questions, how to query stuff, how to get results that made sense from this, what was incredible technology. I said to my mum, I said, have you tried Googling it? She's like, oh, I can never get anything that makes sense. I can never get any good results. I never get the results that you get. And there was a fundamental difference where someone who, wasn't embedded in it, wasn't using it day to day, wasn't learning along the journey, was just jumping in, failing. The technology wasn't living up to the promise of giving you the right answer first time, top of the list, and therefore become disillusioned and not bothering anymore and just asking someone else to do it. And I wonder if we're kind of in a similar place now with a lot of this LLM stuff and kind of co-pilots and agents and stuff, in that there's now a broad acceptance that the technology is incredible and the technology is changing everything, but our ability to use the technology has not caught up with that. And so those who have not been on the journey over the last 6-12 months are now jumping in saying, great, okay, fine, yes, do my work for me. And it's not quite getting results as promised. And that will cause the collapse possibly in hype and stuff that you've talked about. But it's not necessarily the text problem at this stage as much as it is the people's inability or misunderstandings to kind of use it based on its level of maturity. Now, that will all iron out. Obviously, now, if you go and use a Google search, you can put natural language in, you can put whatever you like in, and you'll get something back that makes sense. But that took a long time to get to that situation. And that's where we'll get to eventually with, I'm sure, with this technology. But we're still maybe 12, 18 months, however long it is, away from developing that. But the whole thing's moved so quickly and we're so impatient that you think that Google journey started in 2000 and became actually usable by anyone 10 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, maybe, I don't know. Obviously that is going to be condensed significantly, we expect, this time around. But at the moment, we're very much in that power user phase where power users can get incredible results and newbies just get frustrated.
Yeah, and I think that the power users are the ones that have figured out how they need to change their workflows and change their process to get the most out of it. And the communities that are picking it up now and perhaps haven't gone on that same journey and are trying to do stuff in exactly the same way as they did before are getting frustrated. And there is an element in which that's just a learning exercise. Part of this peak and trough and gradual, maturity, and that whole kind of Gartner hype cycle is giving people time to catch up. Technology is there, it's good, but it isn't baked in the way it needs to be. The understanding around it isn't really there, how it's going to change the way you think about stuff or change your workflows. It takes time to bake that all in. I was kind of thinking about this the other day, actually, in terms of everyone keeps saying that AI is going to decimate the workforce, is going to take a load of jobs away. And I kind of have a lot of sympathy with that, but I don't know how it's going to play out in practice. So people who used to make candles had a good career making candles. People that used to weave clothes with looms used to be upper middle class. But in the broader context of the Industrial Revolution, it created jobs. It created loads of new jobs. The jobs that people did do changed. So, you've got two scenarios. One is we're all going to end up on universal benefit because that's, robots and AI are going to be doing all the jobs. So we're going to live in this wonderful utopia, which I think humanity's been promising for 1,000 years or more and has never happened. I can't really see that. I think we're going to end up with a very different looking workforce. And if you were to take what we have today, and you would go, right, okay, well, this person has this job, right? But now 50% of that job could be replaced by automated workflows or AI agents or whatever. But the whole job can't be. So is there a challenge where you're either having to rethink what a specific job role is, and augment it with more kind of human needed stuff, or is it that you're having to rethink the whole org structure because entire roles can be replaced with agents, or those roles don't really exist anymore because now there's this kind of new org structure which comprises of new roles which didn't exist and a bunch of agents which didn't exist. And that's going to take so long to work out, isn't it? Because trying to get a business to change, as anyone who's tried to do that knows, is really, really hard, and it takes a long time. So the human element is going to mean that it's going to take this time it takes to mature and for all these things to be figured out. So even if the technology was perfect now, it would still take all this time. So that's kind of the first thing that I've been thinking around this whole sort of peak trough adoption thing. Second thing, I don't know if you heard it, but the guy that's the head of AI for Meta, he's been on some kind of interview recently, and I mean, Meta, most people don't know this, but they were doing crazy AI stuff back in 2015 when everyone thought they were wasting billions of dollars on this stuff.
The
but
charge on the open source stuff, aren't they, in terms of the West? The Llama.
Yeah. But Zuck went, well, it's my company, I can spend my money. A bit like he's done with this whole YAR stuff. And, it's paying dividends now. So they were leading in this space for a long time. And the guy that took them on that journey, a really clever guy, is out there on video very recently saying, look, everyone is telling you right now, naming no names, that these LLMs are going to be as good as PhD students. And you're going to have these superhuman AGI or ASI or whatever. And he's saying it's just not the case. He said the current bounds of the technology that we're using today, it's done, right? It's capped out. You can scale it, but you're never going to end up with a PhD student. You're going to end up with an incredible system that can regurgitate the world corpus of knowledge and do that really, really well, such that it could pass the highest exams or match the best human. But it's never going to create new knowledge, which is what you have PhDs for in the first place. Right? The current crop of LLMs and technology, if we do not change the technology, is never going to be able to create new knowledge. It requires humans to look at the output and to steer the machine that is the AI, and to combine that to create new knowledge. So it's still very much a human thing, and everybody's pursuing this. But yeah, certainly the guy, the head of, I wish I knew his name, but the head of AI at Meta is just saying that there needs to be a fundamental change in the tech.
Yeah, I mean that may well be true, and obviously the people at the top end who are writing the headlines about when AGI or the singularity or whatever are going to land care about that. It doesn't actually affect us, right? What affects us and what's actually going to cause the radical changes that you talked about in your first point is a tech that's already there. So the tech that's already there is going to drive organizational change. The tech that's already there is transforming the jobs of every professional services worker on the planet. If it hasn't changed it yet, it will change it very, very soon. Fundamentally believe that. And I think it's first one, then the other. It's going to augment what you do, and then it's going to replace some of the org chart. I just think that's what's going to happen. And that's the tech that exists today. You're always going to need some people. You may or may not need less of them, or you may or may not need different skills. But you're always going to need some people to interact with the technology in its current form until we get to this new level that Mr. Meta is saying that we're nowhere near yet. But so that doesn't matter. What matters is what's in front of us right now. And I think you're right. We're going through all that kind of early technology is now established. It's proven. We know the journey that it's either been on or going to go on to maturity. And as it matures, it will enable individuals and organizations to change the work that's being done and by who it is done. And we saw a lot of that from Google I/O. The stuff that came out of Google I/O was pretty incredible, but vast majority of it, 99% of it, was all refinements on things that we'd already seen. It was a better video model. It was a better agentic network. It was a better way of doing commerce using agents. It was, these are the XR glasses. These are the layers on top of the crazy foundational technology that we've seen over the last 18 months get released. And that refinement is going to keep going and keep going and keep going. And every time that refines, the professional services worker are going to have their role changed or removed. And that's the part of the journey we're on. And I guess what we don't quite yet know are the bounds of that. We don't quite yet know what the final org chart looks like, or what the final job description of any particular individual looks like. It's somewhere between where we are now and not needing you at all, but we don't know where it is. And that's definitely, I think, a transition that's happened.
Yeah, and I think this is a 2-year. We're in a phase now, which is the next 2 years. We're going to be on this journey towards maturing and adopting and being comfortable with what we already have. Now, at the same time, everything's going to get better and more mature, and there might be some, completely new stuff that comes out along the way, or some leaps that are made. But it feels like we are entering that maturing and fine-tuning and adoption phase.
It does impact it impacts people in their day-to-day jobs. It impacts those of us who are running organizations and trying to train people and hire new people into roles, because you've got to think about the fact that they're not doing, even though they've got the same job title, they're not doing those roles in the same way that they were a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago. So how do we screen for the right people? How do we it's something I've been thinking about, is how do we train and bring the right people in for the different positions? How do we know that the individuals are coming in with the right mindset and ready to engage with this change? I've been reading a load of stuff. There's a lot of stuff on this about social media, about AI interview questions and AI enhanced interviews, and everything from just getting the bots to analyze the transcripts and making recommendations off the back of job descriptions, which we've dabbled in a little bit, through to actually specifically tailoring new interview techniques and new questioning around whether or not these guys are AI ready or able to operate in this coming world. So I've got 10 questions for you, Kev. I'm going to ask you these questions, and you are going to tell me whether or not you think these are relevant to help us kind of seed out or filter out individuals that would be good fit for a modern AI-centric organization.
Okay, so let me understand this, right? So these are questions that are designed to figure out if somebody understands the way that AI is capable today of changing the way that they would do their job.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And they may or may not be a technical role. These are just general roles within an organization. Let's assume professional services organization.
Okay, and I've got to work out if this question is worthwhile or not. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I want to know. I want to know. Right. You're someone that still does a lot of interviews. I want to know whether or not this is a worthwhile question in the modern organisation. Okay, you ready?
Okay, right.
Question. We may not get through all 10. We may get bored. But I've got 10.
Yeah, maybe just
maybe there's 3. All right, I'll pick 3. Okay. Please show me how you manage your life with AI. What do you think that's going to tell you? Anything?
Yeah. Probably it would. It would tell me if they understood the breadth of what an LLM was capable of and how they could use it to simplify a whole bunch of the mundane stuff, or help them to think outside the box, or kind of use it as a sparring partner. I mean, because there's all kinds of things that, and also depending on the age of the person, right? Because if you believe what Sam Altman says, Gen Z uses it like an operating system, and a counsellor and a therapist and a shopping assistant and a life coach and all this sort of stuff. So I don't know if it would tell me if they were a useful match for the job, but it would give me an understanding of how much they let AI permeate their lives and how much they understand it can do or not do.
Okay, all right. Along similar themes, then, tell me about a time when you used a multi-step prompt to solve a problem or learn something. Are we a bit too specific here? Or?
No, I think that's an interesting question because perversely, you get better answers if you don't use a multi-step prompt quite a lot of the time. You have to go through the process of a multi-step process often to frame your own thinking. And what I found myself doing is, if I'm trying to generate a certain kind of output or go down a certain path, and then I want to systemize what I've just done, I try and turn that long prompting session into a few shot prompt, as small a number of steps as possible. Because there's a research paper that's come out just a month ago, a couple of weeks ago, I don't know, that basically says, the longer the conversation goes on, the dumber the LLM's responses become. Yeah. So I don't know if that really multi-step thing. I'm not sure. Okay. If that adds much.
A related one then is, if you've got a new problem, talk me through how you would use AI to solve the problem. That's probably better.
Yeah. Yeah, it depends on what the problem does, isn't it? So I think we'd have to kind of talk more broadly about what that problem might be, and then how they could use AI to help to come to the answer. It's going to be very different if your problem is a coding problem, for instance, than if your problem is, I think my son's doing drugs.
I quite like this one. Why are you not wearing an AI pin, pendant, or XR glasses right now to help you with this interview?
I wouldn't ask that question, though, and I would be really disturbed if somebody turned up wearing one.
By the way, I'll throw in the bonus one then. What do you think Sam Altman and Johnny Ive are building? And if you were them, what would you build?
I think that unless you've listened to this podcast or you're up with the current media, you might not even know that's happened.
Yeah, interesting.
So I think that'd be very, very narrow.
Yeah.
Should you know who? I guess you should know who Sam Altman is. I guess is that important? That's probably important.
I saw it. I mean, obviously there are others. It's interesting to understand how much people are taking note and having this kind of new technology and culture permeate their lives, and how that's then going to impact the way they obviously work in the workplace. You know, the way they problem solve, where anyone problem solves, has changed or will have changed if they're absorbing this shift, right?
I'm still stuck on your last question.
What Johnny Ive was going to build.
I know, because I had a chat recently with a friend of mine who is, very high up in the utility space, and he runs an entire department, almost like a company within a company. And he uses AI day in day out, and we chat about all kinds of stuff to do with it. And then when I asked him, we were having this conversation, and I mentioned OpenAI, and I said, "So you know OpenAI, right?" And he's like, "No," right? Which is weird because everyone knows who Microsoft is, everyone knows who Google is, everyone knows who Apple is, everyone pretty much knows about ChatGPT. But clearly, OpenAI still has a way to go to just embed itself in the consciousness of the nation, because it's not there at the moment. They don't see OpenAI; they see ChatGPT. So when I said, I might be surprised if, should you know who Sam Altman was? I don't think this guy would necessarily know who Sam Altman is, even though he's using AI day in, day out, and he's, responsible for an entire, profit and loss of a company.
Maybe. Although, as you say, OpenAI isn't a product that the masses would have heard of, right? ChatGPT is the product, right? That's the face of it in terms of the masses. It's a bit like, have you heard of Alphabet? Or, even when people talk about Meta now, they always tag on the company that owns Facebook. If it's on the news, it's Meta, the owner of Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp. So I'm maybe not so surprised about that, but it would be interesting though how much of a household name Sam Altman is. I would imagine he's not quite Zuckerberg yet, but even in the Nadal, he's probably not. Microsoft CEO is probably not a household name. Obviously Bezos is from Amazon.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's weird, isn't it? We live in such a bubble. Like
we do.
You and me, we just live in this tech bubble, and it's quite hard. Because even my wife, who's a teacher, unfortunately she's married to me, right? So she picks up on a lot of this stuff, and she's really aware of what's going on and all the names and all the tech. But I don't think anyone in her bubble is, and it's a real eye opener to anybody. Any of her colleagues when she shows them something they can do with ChatGPT or some other kind of tool. So I do struggle to see the real world and not just kind of the techosphere goggles,
So do you think then it's fair to say that you wouldn't hire somebody in any role within any of our teams who didn't have good answers to those kind of generic AI questions and how AI is impacting their day-to-day work?
Ooh, I wanted to say yes, but I think at this moment in time that might be too narrow. If you get a really good candidate with a really great level of experience, let's say it's a sales guy or a client-facing person, where a lot of the interaction needs to be human, and that's what you're hiring them for. The processes that they have and their experience, that's not going to necessarily change, but it could be sped up, and the mundane stuff could be automated. It's just they never had the chance to do that before. I don't think that's a binary filter for me. If they didn't have kind of this experience for whatever reason, but they were really good, I'd still want them in our organisation, and I want to kind of level them up.
I think that's a really interesting barometer of where we are in that maturity cycle, right? Because you imagine, I don't know, many years ago, before our time, when email became a thing, right? And you could imagine sort of similar sort of questions.
I
How do
remember
you?
when it became a thing.
Well, there you go, right? How do you communicate with your colleagues? Well, I go and walk. I go and find them. I write them a letter. I send them a fax. I get a carrier pigeon. I send a smoke signal. Whatever it is. Have you heard of this thing called email or instant messenger? In terms of maturity of this technology right now, we're not there yet. It's not expected to be a necessity. It's still very early on in the curve, and obviously we like to think that we're quite far along on that journey. But even we're not forcing people quite to that level yet to kind of be natives.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
That's an interesting thought experiment.
Well, and I've got some new interview questions to ask now as well.
I'll send you the full list.
Yeah.
So I did have one other thing I wanted to talk about, and it was a bit mad, really. I've mentioned Google I/O a few times, and they had a whole list of stuff that they launched. One thing didn't make any sense to me at all, and I don't know if you saw this. I think it was called Beam. Did you see this? It was there. It was kind of video conferencing, video chat type booth, which creates a 3D video chat. And there's something about it that didn't make any sense. It was like bespoke hardware that you have to buy to put into your office to create a 3D version of you that appears, which adds depth to the screen somehow. And lots of cameras. It felt like one of those, what? Where does this come from? What on earth is it? What's it for? It felt like one of those, those pandemic panic innovations. How are we going to make it all feel real now we're working at home? 3D cameras, but this is a 3D camera for an office. I don't understand.
It was kind of out there, wasn't it? As opposed to all the other announcements, which were very much focused on XR or AI or whatever. It did seem a bit off to the side. I don't know. I mean, it's a problem all the big tech companies are trying to solve, but that's that's not a different way. It's not a very imaginative way of doing it, really, is it?
Do you think is it sort of analogous to the metaverse and
well, it's this idea of
back in the day?
It's this idea of presence, isn't it? Like, we were doing this podcast and a 2D image, and there were all these studies during COVID when video conferencing just blew up, and people were allegedly more fatigued because they're not used to staring at themselves for one thing, and they're also not used to staring at these massive heads. So lots of the advice coming out at the time was like, well, turn off the picture of yourself, make your screen really small, all these things to make you feel less exhausted after you've done one of these things. I'm not going to comment one way or the other, but clearly there is a difference between talking to someone on a video conference and talking to people in the flesh. The energy that you have in a room. Like, we were doing a workshop a couple of weeks ago, and it was like a whole day in London, and it was really good. The dynamic between the people, you would not get that. You don't get that over video conferencing, because we run these kind of interactive design workshops over video as well, and there's just no comparison. Face to face is better. You get better results. It's more, it's more energizing. It seems to cover more ground. When we meet as an exec team, we always meet face to face, don't we? And for similar reasons. So I think the big tech companies are aware of this, and they want to try and improve it. So how do you improve that feeling of kind of togetherness and presence and more emotional, energy-giving experience rather than the energy-zapping experience, which is a video call? I just don't know if it's solvable.
Yeah.
I don't think VR's the fix, especially not if you've got this massive thing on your face and you're getting sweaty on an hour-long session. Until they can take over our brains and bypass our eyes entirely. Yeah. I'm not sure we're going to get there.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's not solvable, but it just seemed really left field. I wonder, it's got to be the CEO's pet project or something. It just feels so random.
Yeah.
Cool. Good. Well, I think that's the pod.
Another weekly dose of tech rants and ramblings.
Yeah, until next time.
Till next time. Dun, dun, dun.